The Denver Nuggets, led by an all-time great postseason run from Nikola Jokic, have brought the first championship home in franchise history, doing so in a very dominant fashion, going 16-4 and 8-1 in the last 2 rounds. This has sparked some talk of a new dynasty forming a mile high, but will Denver be the first team of the 2020s to repeat? Something that has eluded the Lakers, Bucks, and Warriors? The Nuggets are the team to beat in everyone's mind heading into next season. But what if they were stacked up against the last 3 championship teams? Would they win? Which team would come out on top if they stacked up against each other? And which team is the best championship team of the 2020s thus far? Led by the monstrous duo of LeBron James and Anthony Davis won the 2020 championship behind their stifling defense, supersized front court, and a great supporting cast around their 2 stars. The Lakers stormed through the West, going 12-3, beating the Dame-led Blazers, the Westbrook-Harden Rockets, and the Budding Nuggets each in 4-1 series before matching up against Jimmy and Bron's old team, the Miami Heat. The series would go 6 games. LeBron and AD were cooking in the finals. Bron had 30, 12, and 8, shooting 59, 42, and 66. AD poured in 25, 11, and 3 with 2 blocks, 1 steal on sizzling shooting numbers 57, 42, and 94. Both of them were elite this whole run, and the finals really capped it off. But there are some key things to note about the Lakers' run and the opponents they faced. In the first round, they matched up with the Blazers squad, who were below 500, going 35-39 in the regular season, and were the 28th worst defense in the entire league. Dame injured his hand in Game 2 and played limited minutes in Game 4 and missed Game 5 completely. The Blazers had no chance of winning this series healthy, but with Dame hobbled, the series was a cakewalk. The next team they faced was the super small ball Rockets with PJ Tucker at the starting 5. This was probably the easiest matchup for the supersized Lakers. The tallest player the Rockets had in their starting lineup was Robert Covington at 6'7". Just for reference, the shortest player in the Lakers starting lineup was KCP at 6'5". Due to this massive size mismatch, the Rockets were outmatched on the boards and couldn't really score anything inside the paint. The Lakers were simply too big for the Rockets, and this showed up mostly in the rebounding number. The Rockets lost the rebounding battle in all 4 of their losses. Game 1 by 6, then 14 in the second loss, a massive 26 difference in their third loss, and 19 difference in their last loss. The Lakers dominated the super small Rockets and took an easy 4-1 win here. In the Western Conference Finals, they matched up against the Denver Nuggets, led by Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, who were on fire in the playoffs up until this point, coming back from 2 separate 3-1 series holes. It was a solid 5-game series, with the Lakers having to battle for 2 close wins, and the Nuggets did the best job of any Western Conference team of challenging the Lakers, but the Lakers were still just too big and too skilled for the Nuggets and Jokic, with AD in particular cooking Jokic for a lot of the series on offense and hitting a game-winning shot over him, while also locking him up on defense, with Dwight and McGee doing a good job as well as slowing Jokic down. Lastly, they matched up with Bron's old team in the Heat in the finals. It was a solid series on paper that won 6 games, but after losing both Bam and Dragic in Game 1, very few people thought the Heat still had a chance of winning. After losing both Bam and Dragic, the Heat's second best player for a lot of the finals was a rookie Tyler Hero. It was pretty much just Jimmy versus the Lakers, and yes, the Heat did have solid role players, Kelly Olynyk in particular, going off on the bench and giving them a lot of scoring, but it was clear that once Bam and Dragic were out, it was a wrap, and still Jimmy was able to push it to 6 games, but it was pretty clear from the start the Lakers had this. When you look at the opponents the Lakers faced, they didn't really face any elite teams. The Heat were one at full strength, but that's not what the Lakers played. The Lakers' best lineup of Bron, KCP, Danny Green, McGee, and AD was unbeatable. They had a net rating of plus 18.4 in 112 minutes and had a defensive rating of 103.9. This could be slightly inflated by playing somewhat limited minutes and the opponents they faced. The teams they played lacked a high level inside scoring threat outside of Jokic on the Nuggets, but the 16-5 and plus 6.9 net rating, the best of the playoffs, speaks for themselves. This team was elite and probably could match up with any team from that year's playoffs easily. The 2020-21 Bucks were an impenetrable defense led by Giannis, with a great supporting cast of Lopez, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, and PJ Tucker. Giannis and the Bucks were coming off a very disappointing 2019-20 bubble playoffs, where they got bounced in the second round by the Miami Heat. The Bucks did not have an easy playoff run through the East, despite Giannis putting up 28 points, 13 rebounds, and 5 assists. The Bucks really struggled to score with an offensive rating of just 112, 11th worst in the entire playoffs. Jrue and Chris in particular struggled to score efficiently, both shooting below 44% from the field and 34% from deep. In the first round, they matched up against a very weak Miami Heat team that had sent them home the year prior. The Heat were shut out and swept in 4 games and in a very embarrassing fashion, with all but one game being massive blowout. They then matched up against the Brooklyn Nets, who were missing Harden to start the series. The Nets started the series very hot, going up 2-0 before losing Game 3 by just 3 points. Heading into Game 4, the series was a real toss-up. Despite the Nets missing Harden, KD and Kyrie didn't seem phased and were balling out. The Nets could probably have won the series until Kyrie went down with an injury in Game 4 after playing just 17 minutes. The Nets would go on to lose this game. Harden would come back in Game 5, but was clearly a shell of himself, going 1-10 in his first game back. And with a weakened supporting cast, KD was still able to drag the Nets to 7 games and almost beat the Bucks, with the game going into overtime after KD's toe was on the line on the game tying, could have been the game-winning shot. The Bucks would win an OT behind a 40-point game from the Greek Freak. In the conference finals, they faced a young Hawks team on the rise. The Bucks and Hawks traded blows in the first 2 games, going 1-1. Heading into Game 3 in Atlanta, the Bucks needed to make a statement, and they did, beating the Bucks by 11 and taking a 2-1 advantage on the Hawks' home court. Trae Young went down with a bad right ankle sprain at the end of the third quarter in Game 3. It wasn't right when he came back in the fourth. Over the first 3 games, Young was putting up 33 points, 6 assists, and 3 rebounds. The Hawks losing him looked like a death blow. Young would miss Game 4 at home, but the Hawks somehow managed to bounce back to even it up 2-2 heading into Milwaukee. With Giannis going out with a scary knee injury, both of their teams were missing their stars, and it was up to Jrue and Chris Middleton to step up for the Bucks. Both Trae and Giannis would miss Game 5, and Giannis would miss Game 6, but the Bucks were still able to take both. Young rushed back in Game 6, but did not look right, and the Bucks took care of the Hawks, blowing them out in Game 5s and 6 by 11 points without Giannis. Over the last 2 games, Jrue Holiday and Chris Middleton combined to average 55 points, 17 assists, and 6 rebounds with 5 steals and 1.5 blocks. They secured the route to the finals, where they would match up against the Suns. The first 2 games, the Suns jumped on the Bucks, second and third best player in particular, and shut Jrue and Chris Middleton down. Both saw a massive drop-off in points and efficiency, and the Bucks were blown out. Their only hope was Giannis could put the team on his back despite his knee injury. Giannis answered the call and played some of the best two-way basketball ever. In the final 5 games, the Greek Freak put up 38 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists with 2 blocks and a steal, shooting 62% from the field and had a net on-off of 22. The Bucks would win Game 3 and 6 behind Giannis's elite two-way play and Chris Middleton starting to find his own groove on offense. The Bucks went 16-7 over the course of the playoffs and 12-5 against Eastern Conference teams. Their starting lineup of Jrue Holiday, Chris Middleton, PJ Tucker, Giannis, and Brook Lopez had a net rating of plus 10.4 and a defensive rating of 96.5. Absolutely absurd. The team finished as the best defensive team with a defensive rating of 106.8, but were pretty average to below average offensively with just a 112.2 offensive rating. They finished with a net rating of 6.8, only 3rd best that year, and the Bucks at full strength went 13-7 with their main starting lineup. They were almost balanced in the second round by KD and a very hobbled Nets cast with both Kyrie and Harden missing games, but outside of the second round, they weren't really ever super challenged out east. The Hawks series went to 6, but that was with Giannis missing the last 2 games. The Bucks faced really solid competition, but I would say they only really played teams slightly better than last year's Lakers. The 2021-22 playoffs, the Warriors and Curry shocked a lot of people when they won their 4th ring in 8 years after going down 2-1 in the TD Garden. The 2021-22 Warriors were an elite defensive team with real questions on the offensive side. Clay was coming back after missing 2 years of basketball, and the team just wasn't very good the previous year in spite of Curry having one of his best years, and they were bounced in the play-in by the Grizzlies. A lot of questions about the Dubs championship window and if it was closed was starting to pop up this year. The 2021-22 Warriors finished the regular season as the 2nd best defense and a middle of the pack offensive team. They had a really good starting lineup around Curry, with Clay and Wiggins covering the wings and Green and Looney battling and setting screens down low. Plus, we're an extremely deep team with high IQ vets like Otto Porter Jr., Nico Bellinelli, and Gary Payton II coming off the bench. Plus, they had guys like Jordan Poole and Kuminga filling out their bench rotation. The Warriors really came into their own in the playoffs with their squad fully healthy. They jumped up to the 4th best offense in the postseason while maintaining a high-level defense. In the first round, they matched up against a pretty depleted Nuggets team that was starting Jeff Green, Will Barton, and Monte Morris around Jokic and Aaron Gordon. The Dubs took an easy 2-0 lead, winning both games at home by 13 or more. This series was looking like it could be a sweep after the Dubs took a close Game 3 on the Nuggets' home turf, but it went to 5 after Jokic dropped 37 in Game 4 to stave off the sweep. The Dubs took care of them in 5 and moved on to face a rising Memphis team that had bounced them the year before in the play-in. Memphis was coming off a breakout year where they finished as the 2 seed and had won their first playoff series since the 2014-2015 season of the Grit and Grind Grizzlies. The Grizzlies were a young team led by Ja with really solid depth. The Warriors stole a close Game 1 behind a dagger 3 from Klay to ice the game. The Grizzlies then took a close Game 2 to even it up. Game 3 was a blowout with the Dubs taking care of the young Cubs. Brooks would miss Game 3 due to a suspension for a hard foul on Gary Payne II, which injured him. Ja would also go down late in Game 3 after a knee injury. Game 4 with no Ja was really close and came down to the wire again. Game 5, the Grizzlies showed that they could win without Ja Morant in the playoffs, with Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, and Tyus Jones all dropping 21 points, and the team shooting 44% from deep. But this hot shooting didn't carry over to Game 6, where the Dubs whooped that trick and won the series. People like to note how this series could have gone either way and point to Ja, who was going off and put up 38 points, 7 rebounds, and 8 assists on pretty solid splits. But the rest of the Grizzlies really were struggling to score, with the team overall shooting 42% from the floor. The Dubs defense was just too much for them, and even with Ja, I don't think that would have been enough. In the game where he did drop 47, the Grizzlies only won by 5. The Warriors simply had too much firepower and too much defensive force for the Grizzlies to keep up. In the Western Conference Finals, the Dubs matched up against Luka Doncic and Jalen Brunson and the Mavs. The Mavs were outmatched on both ends from the very start. Game 1 was a wash, with the Mavs losing by 25 points, despite Curry not even having a good game. And to be honest, Curry is pretty average this whole series, putting up just 24 points down from his 27 for the rest of the playoffs. He only shot 44% from the field and 84% at the line. It doesn't matter, as the Mavs would lose the first 3 games by an average margin of 14 points, but the Mavs would take Game 4 with sizzling shooting from the overall team, going 20 out of 43 from deep, and good overall team play. This didn't last, and the Mavs lost in 5 games. It was a great team effort for the Warriors, with 5 guys other than Curry averaging 10 or more points, and both Klay and Andrew Wiggins had good series, putting up 18 points and playing really solid defense. The Mavs were just outclassed at every level, and it showed. The Warriors moved on to face the Celtics in the finals. The Celtics were the best defensive team in the regular season and kept up that high level of play in the postseason. The Celtics and Dubs traded blows over Game 1 and 2, with the C's stealing home court in Game 1 and the Dubs defending it in Game 2. Heading to the TD Garden for Game 3, all the pressure was on the Warriors, and if they could steal home court. The Warriors struggled badly in Game 3. No one outside of Curry, Klay, or Wiggins could score, and even then, Klay and Wiggs both struggled to get their buckets. It was looking like Game 4 would be the death blow, yet Curry would not go easy into the night. He erupted for 43 points, shooting 54% from the field and 50% from deep on 14 attempts. He also hit 89% of his free throws. The Warriors couldn't score beside him, but Curry dragged their offense through the mud and led them to the win. After this, the C's looked defeated heading into Game 5 in the Chase Center. Curry did not have a good game, but the rest of the team stepped up and carried his offensive load. Game 6, Curry was back to his normal self. The Dubs blew the Celtics out by 23 en route to their 4th title in 8 years, and Curry's first Finals MVP. The Warriors went 12-4 in conference games and 16-6 overall. They were the 4th best offensive team with a rating of 114.5 and the 6th best defensive team with a rating of 109.6. They had the best net rating of 4.9 through the playoffs, and the Warriors took care of business very easily in round 1 and 3, both only being 5-game series that they never, even in their losses, looked like they were worried or had been pushed that far. Round 2 was a much more close series, and they faced a really good Grizzlies team in it. Yet they lost. Yes, they lost Ja for games 3 through 6, but the games were still close. Like I said, I do think the Warriors would have won either way, but the Grizzlies were a really good team and showed that they could push them. In the finals, they matched up with a really well-coached and deep Celtics team that a lot of people picked to win the series. Game 4 was a massive make-or-break moment for Curry and the whole team, and he stepped up and showed out. And the Celtics never really had a chance after Game 4. The Celtics were an elite team that year, and that same team with a rookie head coach just made it to the conference finals again and forced a Game 7 after going down 3-0. Lastly, we have the Denver Nuggets, who won the 2023 championship after waiting 2 years to get healthy. Jokic was unbelievable and had an all-time elite run where he put up 30 points, 13.5 rebounds, and 9.5 assists, with a steal and a block on a stunning 57% on twos, 46% from deep, and 80% of the line. Murray was also elite throughout the whole run, having multiple series that has already put him in All-Star talks. How was the Nuggets' road to their first ever ring? In round 1, they matched up against the Twin Tower Wolves, who had been missing Cat for most of the season and didn't have great chemistry, and came into the series both missing Naz Reid and Jaden McDaniels, both key guys in the rotation. Game 1 was a bloodbath with the Wolves being blown out by 29 points. The Nuggets defense was just too good and no one on the Wolves could get any buckets. Game 2 and Game 3 were kept close by Anthony Edwards' ascension to stardom, scoring 41 and 36 in the 2 games. But once again, no one else on the Wolves could really score, and the Nuggets were able to take them both. Game 4 was a chance for the Nuggets to sweep, but they let their foot off the gas to end the game, common theme for them in the playoffs, and the Wolves were able to battle back in OT for the win. Game 5 was close, with it coming down to the wire, but Jokic just simply said no more and scored 8 of the Nuggets' last 10 points. Ant was great throughout the whole series, but it wasn't enough to stop the buzzsaw offense of the Nuggets. Bruce Brown did say this was the toughest series for the Nuggets. I personally don't buy it. Jokic was playing with an injured shooting wrist the whole series and was still able to pick apart Rudy and Cat. I think if he was fully healthy, the series would have been just way easier. Round 2, they faced the Suns, who had just added KD at the deadline and only had played a handful of games together. Game 1 was the Jamal Murray show, with him going for 34 points and 9 assists on a sizzling splits. The Nuggets blew the Suns out by 18 to start. Game 2 was more of a slugfest, with both teams shooting poorly. The Suns were up by 4 in the third when CP3 went down with his yearly playoff injury, which I honestly think helped him. He slowed the Suns down, letting the Nuggets set up in half court, couldn't hit a shot from deep, allowing the Nuggets to help off of him, and he couldn't really score off the dribble, putting up just 9 points, shooting 25% from 3. The Suns would lose the game by 10, and Cam Payne would get the start moving forward. While Cam's numbers are pretty much the same as CP3's, Cam Payne sped the Suns up and was able to space the floor at a high level. Game 3 was the battle of the star duos, with KD and Booker going nuclear, dropping a combined 86 points, 15 rebounds, and 17 assists. Jokic and Jamal put up 62 points, 23 rebounds, and 23 assists, with Jokic dropping 30, 17, and 17. Yet the Suns' star power won out in a close Game 3. Game 4 was a duel between the stars again, with both duos showing out, but the Suns won in the end in another close game. Game 5 in Denver was a big game, with the series tied up 2-2. The Suns were rising to the challenge, but after Booker seemed to twist his ankle or hurt his leg or something in the third quarter of Game 5, the series was pretty much over. Game 5 was another blowout behind another Jokic triple-double, and Game 6 was another embarrassing loss for the Suns, being blown out massively on their home court by 25, securing the Nuggets' conference finals trip and a rematch with the Lakers. The conference finals, in the Nuggets' own words, were personal. AD, Braun, and the Lakers had shut the Nuggets out in 2020, with AD in particular cooking Jokic on both ends. Jokic and the Nuggets came out swinging in Game 1, with Big Honey dropping an insane 34 points, 21 rebounds, and 14 assists, shooting an unheard of 70% from the field, 100% from deep, and 87% at the line. AD was also great in Game 1 and dropped 40 points, but it wasn't enough, a theme for the series for the Lakers. Game 2 was the Jamal Murray show, dropping 37 and 10. Game 3 was a repeat of 2, with Jamal leading the way on offense and the Nuggets playing great D. Game 4, Braun went off in the first half, going for 31 points and pretty much playing old 24 minutes in hopes of staving off the sweep. Yet it just wasn't enough. The Nuggets were just too good 1-5 and took Game 4 behind a game-winning bucket from Jokic over AD and a game-winning block/tie-up from Murray and AG on LeBron for the Nuggets to sweep the Lakers en route to their first ever finals. In the finals, the Nuggets faced up against the Heat, who had no chance of winning and no hope of stopping Jokic. Jokic put up 32 points, 14 rebounds, and 7 assists en route to the Finals MVP in an easy 5-game series. The Heat were an 8th seed that played really well in their first 2.5 series before just running up against a better team. A lot has been made about Butler's health in this series, and it was clear he was still hampered, but even at full strength, they stood no chance. The Heat were unable to score on the Nuggets defense, only cracking 100 points once in 5 games, and the Nuggets steamrolled through the West, going 12-3 and an overall 16-4, going 9-1 in their last 10 games. They had the best offense in the playoffs of 118.2 and were the 4th best defense with a rating of 110.2. They had the best net rating in the playoffs with a net rating of +8, and they were never really challenged in my eyes outside of the Suns series. A sweep isn't challenging. If you get swept, it's not a challenge. Their starting 5, which played 372 minutes, was elite and had a net rating of +9.4. All of these teams are great. All of these teams I just talked about are great and elite teams. The Bucks were an immovable defense led by one of the most dominant two-way players in a long time. The Nuggets were a blazing offensive engine led by Jokic's wizardry. The Lakers were an elite two-headed monster with great defenders around their star and had AD playing his best basketball of his life. The Warriors were a deep, well-rounded team fueled by Curry's scoring skill. Saying which one is better is not easy, but if I really had to pick the order of the teams, I would go 1. The 2020 Lakers, just an elite defensive team with Bron and AD leading the way on offense with a really solid around them. The Lakers are the best championship team of the 2020s so far. They had an extremely easy road facing favorable matchups, but even still, their greatness shows. Next, at number 2, the 2023 Nuggets. I think Jokic had the best postseason run out of any player on these 4 teams, and the Nuggets went through a lot of tough matchups and the best players in the game to win, but their number 2 guy in Murray just isn't on the same level as Bron and AD, and while they had great depth 1 through 7, the Lakers just edged them out. Third is the 2020 Warriors. Curry was great in this run, but not on the same level as the best players on the other teams, and their supporting cast, while being great, lacks a true elite number 2 guy, with Wiggins, Clay, Green trading that title from game to game. Lastly is the 2021 Bucks. While I think Giannis had one of the best postseason runs, the Bucks really struggled a lot in a pretty weak Eastern Conference, going just 12-5 and an overall poor 16-7. The Bucks on paper had a great second option in Chris, but their offense was bad and relied too much on Giannis just making points out of nothing. If I had to rate the 4 finals MVPs, it would go Jokic, Giannis, Bron, Curry. Let me know what you think of this. I have 2 videos coming out shortly, hopefully going over Kobe and his greatness, and Andrew Bynum, a guy who I don't think gets enough love. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a good day.